They're heavy.
It's way harder to go. That's right.
Yep.
To Tahoe.
Go. 1, 2, 3.
Look at this guy. Always getting better. Yep. Yep. 3. Yep, let's get 6. Yep, 4. 5. Oh, you got more. You got more. 6. Yep, keep going. 7. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 8.
Figure out ways to sneak calories in that aren't going to be too, like, hold you down too much.
Like, is that a lot of that from your baseball background, you think?
Controlled aggression, not just, I'm not even thinking and I'm just ripping the weight. Up your intensity before you start adding things to your workout.
Did squats and deadlifts, you think they had a big impact on you getting bigger, like actual squats and deadlifts?
I'm rowing 4 plates, my back's gonna grow, but it never grew.
Squatting over 1,000 pounds, probably at least 30 or 40 times in training over the years.
Finding ways to just fatigue the muscle.
I'd rather use a machine because I get a better pump than to do a regular squat. I'd rather use a Smith machine. Welcome in everybody to some anabolic activities.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
What does it take to get big? Like, it looks like you got a whole freaking storage bin over here of stuff.
Yeah, so this is everything I bring to work every day. Work in the warehouse, so.
Takes you a long time to leave the house, huh?
Yeah. I prep every night. If I don't prep at night, I'm screwed. And then I wake up extra early to get here on time. But I get it done, no matter what. So we got extra carbs, some rice cakes in case I forget rice. We got my post-workout meal, which is 200 grams of Rice Krispie cereal and 2 scoops of the vanilla It's the Way. You have
the whey protein in here with it?
Yeah, and then I put
great.
water in it and I mix it.
And that works pretty good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Tastes good. Chicken and rice. I think this is like my 3rd meal of the day. Bison and rice. This is my 4th meal. More bison and rice. This is another meal.
How big is that bag?
We have some fruit, some extra fats, almonds, just in case.
He really goes all out with the fruit, by the way.
We
He's
have
healthy.
a neck device, just in case I need to bust them out. We have my creatine, post-workout.
I knew there was a secret.
We have my metformin for at night. It's like a glucose disposal agent. That's good stuff. Calm.
Metformin?
Yeah.
Metformin, nuts, we got everything.
Yeah. We have this, it's a magnesium. It's like a calm drink. Helps anxiety.
You can get metformin from this site?
Yeah.
I thought it was prescription.
No, you can get everything from that site.
Damn.
And then I got my last meal, which is yogurt, more It's the Way, almond butter, and then I throw this in there.
Chocolate hydration?
Just because it tastes really good, yeah.
Sweet, that's what it takes.
Yep.
And then why do you think so many people, they want to just focus in on the steroids, right? Like, that's all.
Yeah.
Everybody just wants to focus in on, these guys are blasting trend, these guys are blasting test.
Yeah.
And that may be true. However, like, this takes a lot of work.
It does.
Takes
And
a lot
most
of
of those
consistency.
people have not tried this for longer than a week. And they usually give up. So.
Because it's hard.
Yeah, this is the hardest part. I don't care what you're using. This is the hardest part. On or off cycle, this is the hardest part. To stay consistent with it too, every day. So, yeah.
I think you're right. I think that is the hardest part. Like, to do this, to try some of this for a week or so, to have a rice cooker and to check food labels, to do some of it for a little while is not that bad.
Yeah.
Do it for a couple weeks, do it for a month. You start to check in on your calories, you're at 2,500 a day, you make some good progress, you lose a little bit of body fat, but to do this day in and day out with the training, you're a young guy, you still have a job, you don't have a career solidified yet,
Yeah.
You're working on all that at the same time while you're paying the bills and then trying to figure out, how to live within a decent budget range.
Right.
And it stacks up on you day in and day out. It can kind of get the better of you. Where do you think you learned like a lot of these? Because this is uncommon for, especially a younger guy, 21 years old, to have this kind of dedication. Where do you think like you learned some of this?
Podcast, just watching other people, like watching other bodybuilders, listening to podcasts, like getting different pieces from different like platforms and just kind of putting it into how I digest it. Like I just make it my own thing, but really it's just every jack guy you have to eat food. Like I'd ask every jack dude in the gym, how do you get big? And they just tell me eat more. And at the time I was like, that's fucking stupid. I'm already eating a lot. But
eat more and sleep.
Yeah, I didn't realize
like,
that
what?
it's like
It's gonna get fat.
Yeah, I didn't realize one, it takes time, and two, it's like the types of things you eat and what time. So like, it's not just like a lot of dudes, especially when I was like 18, 19, especially in high school, I was like, I'm eating so much because I'd eat like 3 meals and at night I'd like binge and eat like everything.
Oh, were you one of those guys that was like thinner and you were like, I can't gain weight?
Yeah, yep. And then,
but if you look back, you really weren't getting after it the way you needed to consistently.
Right, you got to give yourself like the right food.
Where do the young guys mess it up? Where is this 16-year-old kid that's claiming that he wants to grow, that's claiming that he's getting after it food-wise? Where do those guys mess up, you think, food-wise?
I would say the biggest thing I've seen, even in myself, is they'll eat a shit ton of food for 2 days, and then it's usually they eat a lot at night, whether it's after school or whatever they got going on. Like towards the end of the day, they'll eat a lot, and then the next day, they're not hungry for 6 to 8 hours because they ate so much and they're still digesting.
And they maybe didn't eat shit that's that good for them, right?
Yeah, so I think the trick is to I tell people to like start super small. Even if it's like 3 ounces of chicken and a tiny bit of rice, start small but spread that out throughout the day. So do that like, if you're eating 3 meals a day, do that 4 times a day. Then after a couple months, try 5 times a day. And then once you have your base, then start adding calories to each of those meals. But make sure like you don't want to, the issue is you eat so much in one sitting that you can't eat any more meals throughout the day. And then you kind of you pigeonhole yourself. So I think
if Kenny and I go to Chipotle, which would be a lot of fun,
yeah,
and we go get a burrito that's the size of a small infant, that would be fun. That would be amazing. But we're not going to eat again probably till way later in the evening, and probably not till, I don't know, 9 p.m. or something like that, or 7 p.m. And then what you're going to eat at that time, because you already, in my opinion, you already like flipped over your taste buds, you're probably not going to eat something healthy. You're probably going to make another bad choice because the food that you ate for lunch was so flavorful. Not to say that these foods aren't flavorful, but they're more on the savory side. There's not a lot of ingredients in all this stuff. You're using salt and light sauces and stuff like that here and there. And then when it's go time, when it's time to prep for a bodybuilding show, you start to scratch almost all that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
And when you stick to these flavors and there's a lot less ingredients in your food, for Kenny to eat chicken and rice is different than somebody eating chicken and rice from Chipotle, because there's a lot more ingredients in it. There's a lot more fat in it. There's a lot more other shit in it that's unaccounted for because you're not cooking it yourself. And your ability to get to the next meal is going to be really difficult. So exactly what he's saying is that the meals that you have are setting you up for the next meal and the meal after that and so forth. And what I see a lot of young kids do, girls and boys, because I was a football coach for a while, and now I see my own daughter playing volleyball and some of what her friends and things like that do, they get themselves really hungry. Yeah. So not eating the smaller meals, as you're mentioning, which is really smart because you keep yourself from getting too hungry. When you get hungry, you make poor decisions, and you're most likely going to eat what you crave rather than what you need. And that's a huge one. And then you're going to eat something that's not good for you, and it's going to be a double negative because it's also, let's say this is a burrito from Chipotle, that's now taking up space for otherwise healthier meal that would give me exactly what I wanted, rather than, just having this sitting in your gut. And that thing sits in your gut for a long time.
Yeah.
And it makes it very difficult for you to be able to assimilate it, for you to be able to digest it. That's what the vertical diet's all about from Stand Efforting. It's about being able to stack meals. You ate this, your body digests it. Eat this, boom, your body digests it. And you get 5, 6, 7, 8 meals in a day.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, like Justin Harris was talking about almost like thinking about programming your body to be like a food processing machine. So like that's why it's important to, when you start out, if you're gonna lay out, even if it's just 3 meals, not to make them like so big to where you can't even get to the next meal and you're not hungry. You should be, when you start out, what's worked best for me is like I'm hungry going into the next meal. That's a good start. And then from there you can start building on those base meals each day. That's how I did it. But
another sign that things aren't going so well, is your hunger. Like if your hunger is not, if you're not hungry, then you either ate something shitty or you ate way too much in a sitting. The other thing that could leave you not feeling hungry, believe it or not, is your training. Sometimes your training output is so much, or you're in the gym for so long, it just makes food kind of unappealing. Especially like here in Sacramento, the summertime's coming up. It's going to be 9 million degrees out for a few months in a row. And the last thing you really want to do is just sit down with chicken and rice and eat again.
Yeah.
But it's what you need. So you got to be careful with the inputs that you have in your training. Make sure your training is effective and efficient.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. And you can also, there's also other things you can do, like on the topic of working out. Like I remember when I first started, it was hard for me to get even 4 meals in. So what I would do is, if you can digest it, is I would throw scoops of protein and sip it throughout the workout. Like my coach at the time was like, just grab some Gatorade. I struggled to gain weight, so I had a Gatorade. I put a scoop of vanilla protein and I'd sip it throughout that, and I'm like, all right, we'll count that for now. It's just figure out ways to sneak calories in that aren't going to be too, like, hold you down too much.
That's a great way of doing it. You're looking at probably 30 to 40 grams of carbohydrate and probably an equivalent amount of protein.
Yeah.
I think another thing that really hurts people is just their training intensity. Like as you get older, like if you're a younger guy listening to this right now and you're not even necessarily a younger guy, but you're newer to lifting. If you're newer to lifting and you've been lifting for about a year, well, if you're going to step your food up, this is a nice input into your body. So these inputs should help with your output, and you should be able to put more into your training. Again, you do want to be conscious of, like, you don't want to really overdo stuff. But overdoing it, you're going to know, because your hunger is going to be thrown off, your sleep's going to be thrown off, you're just going to be sore, irritable, you're going to lose motivation. A lot of people ask us about motivation, and I think one of the best things that you can do for motivation is just to take a couple days off. Some people are like, oh, I can't do that, I don't think I could do that. But that will really help you a lot, even a couple days away from the diet.
Yeah.
Just a couple days. I know it seems like, it seems hard because you're like, no, I want this like particular body. Like I'm dying for it. I want it now. But if you take just a couple days break of prepping all this stuff, I know it's not easy, but if you do that, you'll be more inspired and more encouraged to do it when you do have an opportunity to get back to it.
Yeah, definitely. Little tricks like that have helped me a lot.
You started training in here just as soon as you kind of knew the exercises, you kind of thrust yourself into them and worked hard right away. Is that a lot of that from your baseball background, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, aside from I feel like I can kind of get in the flow of an exercise fairly quick, but then how I progress and stuff might be a little slower. But yeah, I think definitely sports background helps a lot. Just the competitive aspect of it, like anything, if we're deadlifting, if it's a max effort day, like I want to push super, super hard. So, yeah.
There's only one way, and you were a center fielder.
Yep.
So to rip that ball, to catch that ball, or to get that ball and to throw it to second, and then a guy throws it home, or throw it however far you can throw it, there's only one way to do it, right? You got to put everything you got into it. You got to put your entire body into it, right? Yeah.
And I also, from sports, it kind of taught me, because when I first started powerlifting, like I would just, I didn't know how to stay tight. I would just drop to the floor for box squats and try to stand up. Deadlifts, I just try to like rip the weight, which is good, and for some people it works. But for me, baseball taught me I had an issue with trying to muscle things, like be too aggressive in a sport where you have to be calm. So I learned like controlled aggression.
You have to be like a whip, right?
Yeah.
Like your whole body needs to be fast, but your hand and your arm
everything has to be
kind of flow, right?
Yeah. So I applied that to like deadlifting, like especially sumo. Like you can't just rip the weight. You have to kind of like, you know, slowly go down, wiggle your way in, and then it's kind of slower off the floor. So things like that I definitely took from baseball and was like, okay, more of like a controlled aggression, not just I'm not even thinking and I'm just ripping the weight. Because I've got injured that way too. So
what about like somebody that, again, that's trying to grow, trying to gain some good muscle mass? What about the training side of things? Like, what do you think? Once somebody has like some of the basics down, they've been in the gym for a little bit, they messed around the machines, they got some basic form and technique. But what do you think would be a good step for somebody from there?
I would say
getting big. We want to get big.
I would say up your intensity before you start adding things to your workout. So most people are going to do like 6-7 exercises, which is a lot in my opinion. So I would say you could even cut that down to like 5 exercises and just make sure the intensity is like through the roof compared to what it was. So whether that's getting a training partner and having him push you to failure or past failure, or squeeze a little bit more like reps out, or even if you're training alone, you know, doing some like set intensifiers, like some drop sets, some cluster sets, all that type of stuff. I would just say before you add volume, just look at your intensity, because that most of the time you can always train harder.
Did squats and deadlifts, you think they had a big impact on you getting bigger, like actual squats and deadlifts, not like variations of them only?
I would say, yeah, to a certain point, I feel like, yeah. Because they definitely got like, I found my back got a lot thicker, my legs got a lot thicker, but it was like I found myself with that. I didn't really know, I was doing a lot of that during powerlifting, so I didn't really know how to contract certain areas that I needed to grow. So my adductors in here got pretty big, but then my outer sweep, like things when I got into bodybuilding, I noticed, okay, like the powerlifting movements, the power movements definitely got me to a certain point, but then there's little holes that bodybuilding I need to fill in through isolation work. But I mean, now that I know how to work my body, like, and contract certain muscles, I'm sure I could go back and get a lot more out of those movements.
Yeah, I personally didn't have much in terms of legs. I mean, I squatting over 1,000 pounds many times in competition, squatting over 1,000 pounds probably at least 30 or 40 times in training over the years. My legs didn't really grow. My legs didn't really grow from those movements. Now you got to keep in mind, when I competed, I used powerlifting equipment, squat suits and squat briefs and stuff, and those are assistive. They give you like a boost and stuff like that. But still, even with the heavy movements and the heavy belt squats and heavy leg presses and leg curls and all the different movements, my legs didn't really grow until I started doing more bodybuilding stuff where there's more tension and more reps on there. So I think you bring up a really good point. The squats and the deadlifts are going to probably help more so with overall body growth.
Yeah.
Squat, bench press, and deadlift, all 3 of those movements. More so than the bench press really honing in and building up like a gigantic chest, or the bench press building up huge triceps, or the squat building up huge quads or hammies. It's kind of it's not the movement, it's probably how you do the movement as well.
Right, yeah. Because there was other times, like doing Conjugate Jesse's program, where we did, like, I was fortunate enough to jump into that the first time I came here.
Yeah, Jesse Burdick
because
stuff,
we had a lot of AMRAP, so it kind of taught me, like, one, how to stay tight in the power movements, but also we were following that up with like a set to failure, basically. So I kind of got the best of both worlds when I first came here, but I can see, like, I didn't really see much growth anywhere when I just did, like, 3 sets of 3 on squats that were heavy. Like, I felt sore, but it was more like a whole body fatigue, like CNS fatigue, not so much like direct, like muscle, like quad fatigue. So, yeah.
I think where powerlifting got it right, especially when you look at like Westside Barbell, the conjugate system, a lot of stuff that's recommended by Jim Wendler, the 531 book, which is a great place for a lot of people to start. Super easy to follow along with. The book's inexpensive. It just doesn't make sense for people not to start there. It's a really, really good idea. However, you're not going to really get the growth that you might get from bodybuilding because of what we just mentioned, that time under tension. But it's a great place to start because it is good when you increase your strength, you're increasing a form of work capacity. And I don't think people really realize that. The stronger that you are, the longer you'll be able to work out for, the more weights you'll be able to use in various things. Now, it's to a certain extent, because we know guys that get huge and they get really strong, and they only focus on that and they're way out of shape, right? So I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but having strength can help give you capacity. And when you do switch over to bodybuilding stuff and you do the kind of work that Kenny and I are messing with now, the weights that you choose are going to be a lot lighter, but you're also doing a lot, you're challenging yourself by doing a lot of reps with it. And so it's a great way to bring up the work capacity. It's a great way to make sure that you don't have a weak link in the chain. So if Kenny's going to go do some squats, he doesn't really have to think, oh man, my back's too weak to squat, because he's already worked so much on his deadlifts and stuff like that. The other advantage is going to be the fact that you overload your spine with something like squats and deadlifts. Well, now your stiff leg deadlifts are going to feel lighter. You're going to see a lot of bodybuilders work with stiff leg deadlift movements where they're using 3 plates, 4 plates, 5 plates, and still executing with really good form. And that tells you that that guy who can do stiff leg deads with 5 plates for some reps, that guy's got to be able to pull at least 700 pounds. And he probably has at some point. You look at Chris Bumstead, the strength that that guy has, the amount of weight that he's using sometimes in a squat, or the amount of weight that he's using sometimes in some of his deadlift training and stuff like that. It's because he's still packing on size, and those movements, while those movements with those weights may not make him bigger for that moment, it's going to give him a better capacity.
Right.
So you do that at certain points of your training so that when he comes closer to his show, he's still using more weight than he used to use. Yeah. And I think that's what people miss out on. I think the young guys out there are missing out on they want to get something right now. And that's cool, and I get it, because I was that way when I was young too. But I didn't look like I really worked out until I was probably like 30. I mean, it took a long time. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating, but probably 20. If I was in a baggy t-shirt and I was like 23 or 24, 25 years old, I don't think you would be like, whoa, that guy trains. My arms were pretty big. I was in decent shape. I definitely was in good shape, but I didn't have, and it was because I didn't have any bodybuilding background. It was all powerlifting. But where the powerlifters got it right, what I forgot to mention was that in the West Side Barbell method and in the conjugate system, they put an emphasis on a main intent, a main movement for the day. So let's just say you're bench pressing. The main movement's bench press. Then from there, you're going to do a bunch of things that help improve the bench press. And I think if you were to take that same model and you were to put that to bodybuilding, and you just said, rather than bench press, you said chest. The first main movement of the day is to get the most out of chest. So I'm going to do incline barbell. Then the next movement is, what else can I do to shape the chest really well? All right, well, I already did incline dumbbell or incline barbell. Now maybe I do flat dumbbell.
Yeah.
Then maybe I finish with, like a lot of times we like the isolation stuff, sometimes in the beginning and the end.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with all that. Also, I wish I could apply some, when I was powerlifting, just be more like in tune with my body, like connect a little bit more on the accessories, because a lot of it was just like, all right, just moving weight from like point A to point B. So I wish I knew when I'm doing those lat pull downs and all these things to supplement.
Think about firing.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking like, okay, well, if I also fatigued, if I do it like a bodybuilder, it's going to be bigger. I'm going to have more room for some strength in that area. But I was just kind of moving the weight because that's what I was used to for strength training. And nobody really like told me, hey, connect with this muscle and then it'll actually help your powerlifting movements. But yeah, I think when I got to bodybuilding, like the transition, I was like, I would put like 7 plates on that machine and I'd just row it, but my back was tiny. And my coach was like, dude, you need to like every single movement, do like a 5-second eccentric. So once I got that done, I was like, oh, this is how you train your lats. Because before it was just like, and I was like, I'm rowing 4 plates, my back's gonna grow, but it never grew. So I think that's huge too. And I think a lot of powerlifters, I know they do, but I think if you can just utilize some bodybuilding stuff a lot more than maybe you do in your program, I think it'd help a lot.
Look at some of the stuff that guys like Joe Sullivan's doing. You look back years ago, like Dan Green. You also had Stan Efferding.
Yep.
You know, Stan Efferding, he did bodybuilding and powerlifting. He was a professional bodybuilder, and later went into powerlifting and broke all-time world records.
Yep.
And it's not a coincidence that those guys are breaking all-time world records, especially like Joe Sullivan. Joe Sullivan does a ton of work to actually hypertrophy his quads, which makes his squats a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I think we forget sometimes, like as a strength athlete, you forget the impact, and you forget how awesome that's going to be for your overall strength. And
Definitely.
You watch Joe Sullivan do a squat, it's like picture perfect form.
Yeah.
His technique is so solid, and it's like, shit, man, why is his technique so solid? Well, his technique is so solid because his quads are so conditioned and they're so strong to be able to hit those reps the same way every time, to put the exact tension on them every time. Watch that guy do some hack squats. Watch that guy do some belt squats. Like everything he does, there's so much attention on making that exercise as grueling as possible that he's like living inside the muscle. And I think that's what you want to try to do when you're trying to grow.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that too. Like when I watch him squat, watch him do like a hack squat, you can see how like connected to his quads he is.
Right.
It's like, it's crazy to see, but yeah.
And he had to really figure that out in an interesting way, because on the Power Project, he talked about his neck injury. And he talked about how like he would go to press and like, I think it was his left side just like wasn't there. He would push and he couldn't figure it out. There was some sort of neck nerve thing going on with him. And fortunately, he was able to work it out. I think now he benches close to 500 pounds again.
Yeah.
But you need to get yourself, try to get yourself connected into the muscle. And it's a very hard thing to do. Like if your max squat is 405, and even if we put 365 on there and I say, hey, do a set of 3, it's going to be really hard to feel it. You're going to unrack it and you're going to be like, okay, I hope I don't die on these 3 reps. Rep number 1 is going to be a little funky. Rep number 2 is going to be worse. Rep number 3 is probably going to look like shit. That's kind of just the way it goes. However, if you strip the weight down, you go to 275, and we say, I want to see 3 sets. I don't even care how many reps you do, but I want you to get inside the muscle.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot easier for that athlete to be able to figure that out. And I think that's the disconnect. Because then some people are like, well, I'd rather use a machine because I get a better pump than to do a regular squat. I'd rather use a Smith machine or something.
Yeah.
And there's good conversation back and forth on that, and I think it's debatable. However, I think it's the style in which you lift and not necessarily the actual exercise all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just connecting with your body, like that took me a long time. Like, cause I'd watch all these videos of these dudes on Instagram and YouTube, and I'd be like, all right, this giant bodybuilder with huge legs is just banging out hack squats. That's what I need to do. But the same thing, like I didn't learn how to like really feel my quads throughout a squat or any squat variation until like the last year and a half maybe. Like, because I would just go up and down. Maybe I'd feel it in my lower back and my hips and my ass, but I wouldn't connect with my quads. Now, whether I do like some TKEs or like you can add little stuff in there that's gonna help that too. You don't just need to like overthink. Like I'll do some leg extensions and then I'll go squat, and then it's a lot easier to connect with that. And over time, you won't even need to hit those leg extensions. You'll just build up such a good connection that you could just start squatting.
Just bringing up another excellent point is like the efficiency at which you do a movement. So for me, a squat is not a great movement for me to build like a regular traditional barbell squat is not a great movement for me to utilize to build up my quads, because all I'm going to do is just, I've been squatting this way forever. I go with kind of a wide stance and I shift here, I hip hinge.
Yeah.
And if you're more of a hip dominant squatter, you're going to have to do I have to go on the belt squat, and then I have to really posture up and I got to concentrate. Okay, don't lean yourself over. Don't just use your lower back. Don't just sit back into the squat. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get into my quads. So you have to kind of figure out like what kind of lifter are you. Also, years of bench pressing and being able to bench press over 500 pounds for a long period of time. I learned kind of how to cheat it, sort of bring the weight down real low, drop the weights down, almost intentionally get disconnected to the weight. I would bring the weight down so fast that I didn't have to feel any of the eccentric force of the bar. And then I could reverse it and throw the weight up, and I didn't really have to do much of anything until the bar was like 3/4 of the way up already on the bench press. So powerlifting is like the opposite. You want to get in and out of it as quickly as you can. Deadlift, you did a great job with that with the deadlift. You get yourself set, you get yourself situated, get yourself tight, and then whoosh, like you just try to just break the bar off the ground, get the rep done in the least amount of time possible.
Right.
Whereas in bodybuilding, you take your time, you get the weight off the ground, and now it's like, okay, now we're going to get into the set. You start doing 4, 5, 6, 7 reps, and now you've got 15, 20 seconds of time under tension. Now you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And you're right in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize how hard it is. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to stay in those sets. Like, when you can connect with the muscle to sit in that set and bang out like 12, 15, 20 reps, like, and not just rack the weight, it's so hard. Because in my opinion, going from powerlifting, I didn't squat any crazy amount or do any crazy weight, but it's still, to me, it was a lot easier to just learn how to brace, stay tight, load the bar, and just get the set over with than it is to go on the hack squat, slow eccentrics, and do 20 reps. That, to me, that's just painful. Like, that's hard. Yeah, and I didn't catch on to that, like how to really like get the most out of a set like that for like 2 years. I was just going up and down squats. I would do wide stance, like you said, almost good morning it, and I got nothing out of my quads. So learning just basic bodybuilding stuff, connecting with the muscles, I think will help in anything you do. It's going to help, my opinion.
If you kind of just think about that in terms of like something like running, would you rather go do 3 or 4 100-meter sprints with 5-6 minutes in between, or would you rather go and run 5 miles? The 5 miles is more representative of bodybuilding. Like, you're going to be in it. You're going to kind of be in the suck. And to get better at running is very similar to bodybuilding in a sense that you need to be in like a 70 to 80% range, which sounds inviting at first, but then you realize that you're in this pocket. You're in this dreaded pocket where 70% turns into 115% as you get to those later reps.
Yeah.
And you get to those later sets. And there's many ways of doing it. If Kenny and I are going back and forth on an exercise, let's say we're doing incline dumbbell press. I might say, Kenny, all I want you to use is 70 pounds. He might be like, it's not going to be very heavy. But what if we do 4 sets of 15 reps every minute on the minute? Now you're in trouble because you got 60 reps and you're hitting your set at the beginning of every minute. And so that's one way to do it. That's where you're going into each exercise slightly fatigued. And by the time he gets to his 3rd set and his 4th set is where you're going to probably experience and elicit the most amount of muscle damage to get the most amount of growth. Another way to do it would be just that we just start heavier. We take a little bit longer rest, kind of do the old school light, medium, heavy, maybe finish with 1 extra set after that, and you would get your payment. You would get what you were looking for. On your 2nd set, you would get a little bit of it, but it'd really be on the 3rd and 4th set, the same as the higher reps. So it's interesting the way that it works out. But you would think by staying in like a 70 to 80% range that would be like, oh, this is going to be a great workout.
Yeah.
But it's tough. And sometimes it's frustrating. Bodybuilding can be frustrating because you're like trying to get this very specific feel. You're like, and then sometimes you're like, where is it? Like, I had it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not quite there today. I can't get the pump in my arms. And you're like,
yeah.
Today's like, you feel like it's a wasted day.
Yeah, definitely. It's frustrating. Yeah. I feel, like finding different ways too. Like, in my opinion, heavy weight, like some form of loading the weight and doing a bunch of reps is going to be like king. Like, even look at the West Side guys. They might not have been like bodybuilders, but they were lifting, like, if you look at their triceps or their back, like, they're,
Matt Wenning,
you can't,
those guys.
Yeah, you're like, they're huge. So I think heavy weight is definitely important, but things like that, like different forms of, I guess, intensity, or just finding ways to just fatigue the muscle like that. Like, I know Dexter Jackson's big on, like, I think it was Stan told me, like 25 reps, and like they're just going, like they're not really doing much resting at all. So that's another way you could do it. You don't have to just go super heavy on everything, you can figure out like, okay, maybe you do like super high volume and you just take less of a rest period, and then you're gonna get the same thing, in my opinion, as long as the intensity is there.
Lean into the things that you like to do, and the things that you don't like to do, like just use them here and there, use them sparingly. But as Kai Green says, I'm not a weightlifter. You know, he says he's not a weightlifter, and he kind of goes on to say that he wasn't that obsessed with the weights. However, Kai Green is extremely strong, and I think that, again, sometimes we're listening to people after they already made it.
Right.
And it's like, well, hold on a second, Kai Green. I'm a little confused because I've seen you use 405 on incline press before for reps. So he's saying he's not a weightlifter, but he's actually very proficient at lifting heavy weights.
Yeah.
Most of those bodybuilder guys, even, like, I don't think Jay Cutler really did a lot of single, maybe when he was younger, maybe he did some single reps, but Jay Cutler really, really cleanly, after doing over 100 reps of leg extensions, he would do 4 sets of 25 leg extensions, get a crazy pump, then he would switch into the squat afterwards. He would squat 3 plates, ass to the floor, 4 plates, ass to the floor, 5 plates, ass to the floor for like sets of 10. Like that kind of strength it's really unbelievable, especially considering the guy was like 300 pounds. So the conditioning and the shape that someone's in, and he's also not just doing, it's not 10 reps. It's not like he's barely getting 10 reps. He's doing 10 reps really easy and really cleanly, and he's connected to the muscle.
Yeah.
So you know he could throw on 6 plates and probably get a similar amount of reps, but that's going to be, he's going to have to dive bomb it. A lot of the weight's going to sit in his lower back.
Yeah.
He's going to not get what he's looking for in his training. And you want to make sure that if you are to train heavy, or if you are to really push the intensity, you want to think about the risk to reward at least a little bit, even if you're a young guy. I know, like, you know, people just don't want to fucking go, but if it costs you the next day and the day after that, and you have crappy workouts, I think you did yourself a disservice. You need to be able to recover from your workouts. That's why Kenny is dedicated to this. This is why you need to be dedicated to your sleep. It takes a long time to figure all these things out, but if you train hard and then you can no longer train hard and it's something that you really love, you're going to be like, man, I got to do what those guys are saying. They said to eat big. They said I need 5-6 meals a day. They said I need protein at every single meal, minimum 30 grams. You're like, damn it, I got to do it. I got to get the right amount of carbs in. Got to get my carbs in grams of per pound of body weight, if not even double for some people that want to get big. And so these are things you're going to have to figure out unless you're really not as passionate about it as you thought. How long does it take you to make up all this stuff? Do you do it all in like one day? Do you prepare for the week?
I do it in bulk. So all my proteins I do in bulk. It'll last me like two days. So every 2 days. The rice is pretty easy. I'll either do I'll make a bunch of rice, or I'll buy like the little
90-second?
Yeah, I'll do those. So finding things that are time efficient is huge for me. So stuff like that. The carbs aren't ever an issue, but the protein is really just the only thing I need to prep. So I'll just do that every 2, maybe 3 days and do it like that. Other stuff is like the yogurt.
What if you messed up? Do you stop at a grocery store or a gas station or something, try to get like cottage cheese? Like, do you have any hacks?
Yeah, I'll go to like Walmart or something, and I did it.
Walmart's everywhere. That's convenient. It's inexpensive.
Yep, I did it last week. They always have like shredded up chicken breasts. They like
shredded up and cooked already.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I'll buy I have some in the fridge over there. It's like probably like 12 ounces or something like that. You buy 2 of those, you have protein for the rest of the day. So yeah, definitely I've been there where I'm like tired. I forgot to prep. I wake up.
Don't forget about fruit. Fruit is easy, portable.
Yep.
Bananas, oranges, apples.
Yep. And protein powder you can supplement, like if you're in a pinch, protein powder is probably the easiest if you have some, but yeah.
Take us on out of here, buddy.
That's it for today on Anabolic Activities. Let us know what you guys think. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube at Anabolic Activities. And your Instagram?
At Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never a weakness, weakness never a strength. See you guys later.